culture is so specific to the region, to the company, and all of recruiting is missing that because they don't have access to the values, motivators, or work styles. The few companies that think it's important are only spending money on behavioral tools, and that is not very predictive on culture fit.
Hey, greetings everybody. This is Adil from Hyperengage Podcast. I know we started a little late, but it's all good. Like we get a push it to recording and editing team will take the work, and you'll have this episode right on time. Today we're going to be talking about like human behaviors and how they have exceptionally evolved with AI and how the understanding of AI has made a huge impact into understanding human and brain and how they actually react. And number one industry that has impacted there was quite some years ago, like it's what 2-3 years ago, like HR tech, people's teams, and how they're basically having their understanding on the human level with people while onboarding, while hiring, while training and all of that. So that's why we've got like this is one of the dreams episode that we're gonna have because this is the episode that I'm gonna learn myself with John, who's the chief executive officer of Humantelligence, building AI first coaching platform for HR teams and people teams in different organizations. Thank you very much, John, for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Adil.
Love it. So, John, just a quick background on the inception of all that you've been doing. I know that you've been pretty much heavily invested into human intelligence, and now this AI coaching that you have recently built for the past decade. Like you've been more involved in that. But apart from that, like as an entrepreneur, as a thought leader, you've been a part of one of the biggest brands that that have ever come on the United States. And when it comes to sports, when it comes to different other industries. So could you walk me through a little bit, if you just take you like 30 years back, and what was the biggest moving force for you to build all of this and move build all this technology and then come into the AI part, like that you pretty much rode that wave early on when it comes to conversational AI and all of this. So it'll be super inspiring to people listening.
Yeah, so my journey that took me from wanting to just do business to running an AI software SaaS company. I'm 55. That journey was a 25-year journey. So I'll try to summarize it. It was not I woke up at 18 and I wanted to run a software company. That was definitely not my journey. So I was a risk-averse guy. So I went to great schools. As you go to great schools, you minimize risk. So I went to Harvard for college, went to Wharton, MBA from MBA, right? The two best schools in those respective areas. Then I went to work at the best training and leadership management company in the world, has more CEOs than any company in the world, more higher acceptance rate to Harvard Business School and Wharton Business School than any other company. And that's Procter & Gamble. Great school, learned a ton. Left there to go to Wharton, and then I worked at several companies in management: Puma, Reebok, a sports company called Decathlon out of France, all over the world. I worked as a headhunter, so executive search consultant for 15 years, two of the largest firms, Heidrick and Struggles and Korn Ferry. And then I worked in software at a company called Siebel Systems, the first CRM company before Salesforce. We went from 100 employees to 12,000 in 1 year. So you can imagine hiring 1,000 people a month. And we went from 8 million to 3 billion in revenue in 2 years. There is no company in history that has had either of those two growth metrics in less than 7 years. So truly the quickest, most powerfully growth-minded company in the history of mankind, right? I got to watch and work for Tom Siebel. So I had all these great experiences. I left the US at 22. I speak 5 languages. I spent 10 years in Latin America, 10 years in Europe, a few years in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Realized that the only place you can build something if you're not from that country is the United States, because all the leaders of companies in Germany and the most influential and powerful and wealthy people are German. Same with France, same with England, same with, Brazil, Mexico, every place I lived. So came back and I wanted to create a company. By the time I had money, after doing executive search, it's one of the most profitable businesses in the world, that took all of these life lessons and put it into a platform. Like, how do I extend my superpower as a human being? I know languages, I understand people, I know how to connect. And I realized in all these different companies, connection wasn't happening. I also was one of the best recruiters in the world, and I could read people and understand them quickly without even interviewing them in a way, and know where they would fit from a culture perspective. Skills and resumes are a commodity. You can always find 1,000 people for a job, but who's the right fit was a superpower. And so between the idea of connecting people so they're happy at work and recruiting better, my two superpowers, I found a psychometric instrument, a personality test that I bought to build into software for recruiting and for better connection. And over the last 10 years with AI and being within workflow, kind of like Grammarly, I've created the world's first personalized AI coach in workflow. So in Teams, in Outlook, in Zoom, where you can just ask any question to this virtual AI coach that's worth $50,000 per person, right? If you get a personal coach you call every month and ask questions, I mean, that's like 50 grand for executives. Our coach is better, smarter, has more access to more information, knows you better, and can give any tips around leadership, talent development, recruiting, hiring. It solves most of the problems that HR departments and companies have not been able to solve around their people for the last 100 years.
Ooh, so I mean, yeah, I mean, it was so amazing for someone to come up and say this, because I know that like there are so many platforms came only in this body that we've done like 150, 70, 60, 70 episodes. There are like 5 or 7 platforms that came, and they couldn't claim it because of course they're starting out, and it's all about like understanding human better and all these chemistry that you're mentioning. That is a neuroscience that actually makes it different. So now thinking about recruitment, thinking about hunting people, getting the best people to work. Like, I know it's a big problem, starting from like all these Amazons and Googles and Salesforce had recently lay off a lot. I was in SF when that happened, and it was crazy. Like because they think that they didn't make the right decision in the first place, and that it took like them several years to do it right. And then, so how do you see it like making this problem? Making the right decision on people, not on skill level, not on experience, and that is a part. Like on a personal level, like there's this platform that came like that is judging the sincerity. That was kind of something that I was like, how can we like actually judge that? Like what's a formula in it? So, but it is the biggest problem. So how do you see it? What's your viewpoint on this industry problem? Like getting the right answers and getting them to be motivated enough and knowing them ahead of time, and understanding their traits and everything. So how does I know we're going to be talking about Oscar in a bit, but how did all
Yeah.
came along, and how did you over time make it really, really efficient, as you can come and say this?
Yeah. So most people focus only on skills and experience, right? Basically what's on the resume, which is what someone has done. But that completely ignores culture and how to do a job within the specific culture of a company. I'll give a couple examples. And culture, by the way, let's define it. Culture is not an engagement survey. If people are happier, that's not your culture. Your culture, if you're a restaurant, is are you a service-oriented restaurant? And do you have service-oriented people, or people focus more on money? But you could pay the best $30 an hour waiters and have all the demand for waiters who all care about money, and maybe net promoter score is low and everybody hates your restaurant because the service sucks. But if you hire people who don't care about money but care about service and giving good service, you have great service, right? So culture is the aggregation bottom up, not what you put on your website, what you want to be. In an ideal world, what you put on your website as a culture should align with your people, but today it's not, because no company in the world today can measure the behaviors of all their people, the motivators and values of their people that drive behaviors, and the work styles of their people. If you don't know the values and work styles, you don't know your culture of your people. And there is no tool other than Humantelligence's psychometric instrument that can do that, and not for $1,000 a person, right? We're just a couple bucks per person. So we're the only tool that can actually measure culture. And so what we ended up finding was, if you get someone who really succeeds at Home Depot as a cashier register, and they have 10,000 cashier registers, their top 1,000 cashier registers are great at that job, those skills, in the culture of how Home Depot does cashier registering. You take those top 2,000 people and put them at Lowe's, a competing store that does it differently, and half of them might fail terribly. And you think, wait a second, it's the same exact job. They were a high performer in company A. Why wouldn't they be a high performer in company B? because of culture, because of the ways people work, what's important in that company. Procter and Gamble has great people in brand management and marketing. Those people go to Clorox and they could fail. They go to Pepsi, they could fail. Coca-Cola salesperson for Tennessee runs the region, the top guy or girl. PepsiCo could hire that Coca-Cola salesman or woman, same region, same territory, same clients, and fail. Because the way companies do things is called their culture and the values of that company. People are hiring without knowing that. LinkedIn and every other job board, you're getting thousands of resumes, and you might as well close your eyes and just pick, because without knowing the fit of the culture to the company or the role or the team, you literally are missing the point. And by the way, even within a company, the culture of high performance at Starbucks, store 107 in Miami, where it's all Hispanic customers and Hispanic workers, the culture in that store is not to be in a rush and get out in 2 seconds, and the pickup counter for order to go is empty. You have a line of 20 people and they're all talking, and the cashier register is talking and making comments about the baby and squeezing the cheeks of the baby, because in Latin culture, that kind of connection is important and people want to open about their personal life. And that's a high performing store in South Florida. You take that same Starbucks store group of baristas and put them in New York City, in Battery Park, where you have all these investment bankers going to work. The last thing they want to do is talk to the barista, have them squeeze their baby's cheeks, and wait for 20 minutes while all this is happening. That high-performing Starbucks barista team would be the worst performing team in the world in New York City. So culture is so specific to the region, to the company, and all of recruiting is missing that because they don't have access to the values, motivators, or work styles. The few companies that think it's important are only spending money on behavioral tools, and that is not very predictive on culture fit.
Amazing. I'm just thinking through it, how deep down you already know as a subject matter expert, and it's not possible because, when AI came just 3 years back and ChatGPT, all these recruiters and all these teams that are building HR tech, and they're thinking of, hey, we have the data, we have the information, we can collect information from people, candidates and employers, and we get the best technology because, AI will do the rest. But overall, it was like the people that have actually won, being example, like Humantelligence, are basically the people that have the deeper understanding on the subject.
Yes, because all
like
that
the culture.
agentic AI that's making recruiting faster, all it's doing is having people fail faster and hire bad hires faster. And it's cool
Having
stuff,
bad
but
hire
it's
fast.
it's going to help you sift through 1,000 resumes to get to the wrong hire faster. Like they
Absolutely.
don't have the right inputs. They're missing. Look, there was a study that showed that only skills and experience are only 30% predictive. 70% of success on a job is the culture fit piece. Like, and most companies aren't measuring that, not looking for that. They don't even know. They don't even
100%.
know what their own culture is. They think they put it on the
Absolutely.
website and they think that's their culture. That's crazy. Like there have been studies, a guy named Professor Don Sol, former Harvard Business School, now MIT professor, studied the Fortune 500 and the 5 values that every company put on their websites. Can you imagine 500 Fortune 500 companies? They're all completely different industries. 80% of them had the same 4 or 5 words as values. So first of all, everybody wants to be agile, service, right? And then
Growth
secondly,
mindset.
yeah, exactly, all the same buzzwords, right? And then he actually, I think, asked like 5,000 people at every company across all these companies, statistical significant sample, I don't remember the exact numbers. And there was zero correlation of what all the employees of the 500 companies at every company, zero correlation between what the people at the company experienced working there and the 5 values on the websites. Zero correlation. So it is, I mean, to put it in a young person's term that I heard the other day, the heads of HR and CEOs are, quote, smoking pot, meaning they're on drugs if they think putting the culture that they want on the website is actually their company culture. Now, the good news is there's tools like Humantelligence that will show them the actual gap for the whole company, for every division, for every team, and for every person. And AI can do a development plan to get every person to be more like the culture they have on the website. So in seconds. So the good news is there's a solution now to align people, individuals, teams, companies, groups with culture and a development plan to make it happen with AI.
Love it. Love it. And just on this, because we're going to be getting to technology and how
Oh,
you're
I
measuring
have 20
success
hours for
for.
you, a deal, whatever it takes.
Mhm. Love it. So, John, now thinking about AI capabilities, I'm not the next biggest problem is okay, you're a domain matter expert, you're the subject, you've been doing it, been there, done that, and you've lived that problem all your life, let's say 20 years, 30 years. The problem still is the same, like how you are going to make AI smarter and have a deeper understanding as you have as a human at scale. You might be doing for like, let's say, a lot of these problems that come up with these founders, and they're struggling, to be very honest. Like it is so much hands-on. Just say, for example, AI for sales. The sales are different in oil and gas, sales are different in B2B SaaS, sales are different in healthcare, sales are different in real estate. I mean, all of these industry verticals are altogether different. And of course, they might have subject matter expertise and they might know have a deeper understanding of the conversational AI and building verticals and specializations, but they still have to go expand in these verticals really, really hands-on. And of course, the cost has been a bigger problem. Like, they're not able to scale it. So how was your journey at Human Intelligence and then specifically building the Askora?
Yeah, so at Procter & Gamble, they trained me when I got promoted for my first leadership role, something that shocked me, which is also what we built into our product 30 years later. I got promoted, so I was clearly the best assistant brand manager, and now I was a brand manager. So of the other five, I was the guy they picked, right? So my ego was high. Had just come out of Harvard, my head was bigger, couldn't fit through the door. And my boss closed the door behind me, sat me down and said, "Hey, now's the tough part." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" The tough part was working 60-hour weeks to get this job, to get to be boss. Now I'm going to be like all the other bosses, leave after 40 hours a week and tell people what to do. And he goes, "Well, how are you going to lead and manage each person?" And I'm like, "Oh, they'll just do what I do." And then he goes, "No one, now that you're a leader and a manager, you need to change how you communicate, how you listen, how you manage, and how you lead. You have five people under you now. That means you need five versions of John, five versions of how you manage, five versions of communicating. You need to meet each person where they're at." And I was like, "That's exhausting. Are you kidding me? Like, you're joking, right?" And he goes, "No, that's what makes a great leader." And that's when it hit me why leadership is not scalable and why most leaders fail and they suck, because they just think, "I'm the boss, people will just do what I say." To be a successful leader over time, because that model works for like a couple months, to really get people motivated, engaged, and to follow you to the top of a mountain, you need to connect. And so we built Ask Aura to be able to get all leaders and managers up to speed that quickly without having to do a lot of work. Because without a tool, without a psychometric assessment, I could be a professional PhD IO psychologist and it would take me weeks to get to know Adil, Priya, Javier, Mohammed, Steve, LaQuisha. It would take me a long time if I was a world-class expert IO psychologist. What Humantelligence has been able to do is feed AI with a 10-minute personality test that you give to 10 people on your team or 1,000 people at your company in a day. Monday morning, 9 a.m., everybody gets a link. "Hey, please take this. It's a personality test. It's fun." And in 10 minutes, after you take it, all of our systems will know your psychology, the psychology of your team, the psychology of the company. And this Aura, this agent, Ask Aura, will know you better than yourself and help you be happier at work, find projects that engage you, reduce friction, and help your boss manage you the way you want to be managed. And so instead of having confrontation all the time, they're actually doing things the way that we all approach our spouses. You look young, don't know if you're married, but are you married, a deal? Like,
Yes, I have a 5 months old. It's
okay,
pretty
so
tough.
you and
First time
you've
parent.
been married 5 years, 3 years. How long have you been married?
Yeah, 3 years, but we just
3 years.
had for first baby, five
Okay.
months old.
So
Pretty tough.
conflict will increase. Now that you have a kid, conflict always increases with a kid. And so there are moments with a spouse that everyone learns in personal life, but they don't do at work, which is, "Oh, I need to get this from my spouse, my husband or my wife. I need their approval to go out with the boys for a poker night, or I need, or she says they need to go out with the girl. How do I approach her? I need the kid this weekend, or I want to do this activity." And so you learn how to couch the information in the way that best received by your spouse in the right moment. This kind of understanding and coming to meet your partner where it's at, we do it at home all the time because we respect and love our partners enough to change for them. That's what's being called, that's human. To be really human, you care, you understand, and you change for the other person. We've created that with Humantelligence and Ask Aura, where everyone now at work can change and have data to tip them and say, hey, in this meeting, Mary doesn't speak up very much. She's not going to say anything. But if you want her to be seen, ask her in the beginning, in the middle, at the end, what her thoughts are. Now, some people might say, well, that's AI cheating. It's giving you tips when you wouldn't have known. Well, if AI helps you cheat to be more human and to connect more, I'm all for cheating.
Let it be, yeah.
Let it be. Like, I've literally had people tell me, but AI to help people work with each other, that's cheating. Or AI to rewrite an email the way the other person likes to read it. So what, you're suggesting I keep writing it my selfish way and hope everyone likes it my way? Like, let AI rewrite it so that they're happy too. Like, are you kidding me? So it's amazing how people, when they hear AI, they get so close-minded, they can't even visualize how AI today, at least in our product, does not replace anyone. It enhances humans at work and makes them better work colleagues, makes them better managers, makes them more human at work. And what's coming, 30% of jobs will be AI agents. And guess what Humantelligence would do for them as well? It'll make those AI agents more human when working with every person, because those AI agents will actually understand people like they're their spouses and not like a robot that just says the same answer, like those damn chatbots that I always write to in the corner for some customer service that never answers my question, that's not personalized, and I want to kill it, right? But it's a chatbot. I can't kill it. Ours will actually make your life easier and make you feel more human. That is Humantelligence, the first AI on the planet that makes work more human at scale for everyone.
So interesting that you really expanded your answer on like the capabilities, and doing it at scale has been the biggest problem, and how you can, of course, like I know that training it's only possible when it's impersonated and it's on a human level, as you mentioned. When at your first role, you got to the leadership, and your manager said like, you got to make sure you go to that level, and go meet at their level, and have understand it. And same as when AI agents going to come, they're going to be replacing humans. For example, human brains, you got to treat them as same, right? You got to make sure that they're at their potential. You're getting the best work out of them, and
you're going to have an AI manager, right? Your manager might be an AI agent.
Yeah.
Damn right, I want that AI agent to use Humantelligence and talk to me the way I like to be talked to, and engage me the way I like to be engaged to. Like, that would be awesome, right? Or if it's just a robot and it treats all five of us the same, like, I'm not going to follow that AI agent. I'm going to quit and be like, oh, it's a freaking robot. It doesn't understand me.
Interesting. So now, John, also thinking about, like, I know that we're not so big about like having flashy words and putting on the clients that, we got John today, they're working for these big clients and logos and all. But just on the go-to-market side of things, I know that success has been the bigger portion of how you're, making Ask or a win for all of these organizations, for all of their hiring people management needs. How you're measuring success? I know I was in New York City earlier this year, and we were so big about like, hey, you're generating this much annual recurring. How much are you putting back into the success of their customers? So, what kind of vision do you have around that, and how you're investing? What kind of tooling have you involved to measure the success? For example, you're measuring success for hiring managers. Had the best understanding around different roles. So, how you as a platform measuring success internally?
Yeah. So selling our product has been tough because today, for whatever reason, CFOs dominate decisions on spend and budgets for all software, whether it's finance software, HR software, supply chain software, marketing software. And unfortunately, a CFO's first requirement is prove me the ROI or I'm not paying for it. And unfortunately, there's a group that we are automating with AI called talent management, talent development, leadership development, L&D, learning and development. And those groups, they spend millions of dollars. If you were to ask them today, and they've been spending millions for years, well, what's the ROI of having a management training program where your managers get this training by this workshop? You spent $30,000 10 times this year for 10 groups, 300,000. Well, we just were investing in our people. They're going to be better managers. I mean, that's literally the level of ROI. I mean, they don't calculate it. They don't know it. What kills me is we're now showing them they can do that kind of training for $30,000 for 10,000 employees, not $300,000 for 30 employees. which to me, there's already an ROI that you can hit more people with less money. Today, they're investing tools like DISC and predictive index and Principles U and all these behavioral science tools that they do a workshop and they use once. So ROI is one use and never again, because everybody has a folder of all the tools they've ever taken, the assessment tools, and they never looked at it again, right? Either a digital folder or physical. The ROI of usage, which is an ROI, we get usage 20 times a month per employee for 67% of employees. Okay, so you can imagine that's 240 uses per year of getting insights on how to connect, how to communicate, how to collaborate, how to lead. 240 moments of value versus the one moment of value of all the previous tools in the world that came before us. These are all great examples of better ROI than prior, but we can't really connect it to you will have more sales, more savings. And unfortunately, ROI has been defined, I don't know by who, what God of ROI exists, but has deemed the world that ROI can only be cost savings or revenue. And we often I stopped looking for money from venture capitalists because they would bucket us in, well, John, there's only one type of ROI, and we only invest in companies that are painkillers, that if you turn it off, the company fails. Not vitamins
Not
that are
vitamins.
nice to have, right? And so I heard that so many times I stopped going to VC because no, your company won't turn off if you don't use our platform, but attrition will increase, turnover will increase, leaders will be unhappy, they'll be bad, like you won't be as effective. Can we quantify that with a number? No, but at least 1 in 5 companies we pitch do end up getting it. The concept and understanding that they don't need a cost or revenue ROI, and they do end up moving forward with our tool. Companies such as Accenture, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, PepsiCo, Honeywell, and Cemex, Bachoco in Mexico, and several more, potentially Aditya Birla Group in India, which is one of the largest companies in the world, et cetera.
Interesting. I know that this has been the biggest, I would say the biggest penetration that you've had in the enterprise segment. So how are you thinking as a founder, like penetrating towards the mid-market, like almost 600 million businesses between the SMB to mid-market to this day? And there's
that's
a
the holy
huge
grail.
market
Yeah,
gap.
that's the huge. To do that, you need money and process and a structure, right? You need a lead gen structure where you're driving thousands of people to your website, content, thought leadership, where you're kind of getting your brand out there, thought leadership where people are clicking to get to your website to learn more. And then you need someone to be following up and a team of SDRs to qualify the 1,000 a month or 1,000 a day, ideally, to the 30 that are interested and qualified to then get to an account exec. You're looking at a minimum of $1 million a year to do that. We don't have that money yet, but once we do, probably in the next 6 months, we'll start that kind of process of a lead gen funnel, fill the funnel at the top, down to the bottom. And it's a great mathematical equation. We do this many meetings, we'll close this many at this average price. Okay, now I know how much I can invest to put more in the funnel and make that output bigger. So we haven't got to that repeatable, consistent lead gen model yet for a SaaS company, but that should happen by the end of next year.
Absolutely. I mean, good luck with that because this has so much of potential. Like you've done the hard miles, you've done I know this is doing it at this product, this capabilities at scale is the hardest bit, which you already done. And a lot of these companies, I'm not talking about SMBs so much because they're so focused on growth and all of that. They're not so much focused on culture and team early in the first 5 years. But the companies that are like post product market fit and they're like a size of close to 500 to 1,500, they are really thinking about like getting the best work out of people, investing into training for the leadership and hiring external leadership like for sales for all of their teams. And without knowing people, I don't think they'll ever be able to figure out like what is the best training for their team members or their leaders and all that without knowing them. So that's the biggest gig that I'm looking at. So now Humantelligence, I know this. You launched this Asker how long ago, Joe?
So the company Humantelligence was 10 years ago.
That's 10 years, yeah.
We focused on recruiting, scaled that business. COVID really hurt that business, so we had to pivot. Kept the recruiting module, so when recruiting would come back, we would have it. But then moved into talent management and broader talent development with the Psychometric tool for the last 5 years, really fuddling around with a lot of versions that just weren't sticky or didn't get a lot of usage over time and adoption until Ask Aura. That way of consuming information. I mean, I used to go to Google search 20 times a day. Now I go to ChatGPT 20 times a day. Would you prefer to write a question and get 1,000 answers and have to click through and read and interpret, or just ask your question and get an answer that does all that for you, right? That's how we re-platformed everything as a Ask Aura coach, taking all this great content to be consumed through questions and answers with this coach. That started 18 months ago, and we launched it 8 months ago. So it took about 10 months to build it and 8 months for Ask Aura to be in the market. So kind of the Ask Aura has been in market for 8 months.
8 months. Interesting. And now thinking about only enterprises, like I know that adoption is been the biggest concern, like big red tape and global operations divided. Like what kind of challenges you had during the onboarding? And, I know that you already mentioned that. Is there any tool that actually measures the stages on the stage level, the life cycle of these customers, that are like how they're consuming, how they're adopting to the platform over time? So could you also walk us through that?
Yes, we have built into the platform the ability to track usage, right? So we know that 92% take the assessment. We know that 67% ask questions every quarter, that every month 47% ask questions, and that the average questions asked is 15 times per month per employee. So we have those metrics. We also track with a little survey at the end of every month, key questions like, did this product help you work better with your manager? Or did this product help you work better with your subordinate or with your team? This product help you resolve conflict? And so usually we're between 85 and 95% yeses that it has been helpful every month in a wide variety of use cases. Did it help you write an email better this month, right? Things like this. So qualitative performance, customer success. Where there is lower usage and some problem child customers, all it takes is going in and doing a demo for that population, because a lot of people are just overwhelmed. And if they don't see something or why they're doing it, reading about, oh, this is an AI coach for me, I don't have time. But then they see a demo of it and they're like, oh my God, I can ask how I should ask my boss for a raise. Oh, I can ask, how I can develop this one area of myself that's causing conflict at the company. So people see, what's in it for them. In seeing a demo, those demos really go a long way to get then 90% adoption and usage. We just don't have a huge staff to do that with every client. So there's where there's a gap. And, we try to send videos, but, one of the hardest things for adoption is the whole training component of a new software platform. I didn't realize going into this as a startup, you can have an amazing product that's everyone would love if they tried it, but getting them to try it, how do you do that? Like,
I've done more than 100 episodes just on that onboarding.
I mean, it's the hardest thing in the world. Like, unless you're Accenture and you can throw, 3,000 consultants at IBM that are in there every week, but
spray money every single day. Yeah.
Right? If you have money and people, but what if you're a small startup of 20 people trying to convince a big company to have all 20,000 people to use your product? You would think that just the CEO sending an email would work. It doesn't work that way.
Love it. So now
one day we'll have another meeting where you can tell me what the secrets of that is. That's where we still are. I wouldn't say failing, but we need the most help.
Yeah, I mean, of course, because this has been the challenge, and this is something that you can even expand within the enterprises. Like if you just nail this part, like how do you do the right onboarding, make sure that you have the adoption kind of playbook that people can easily adopt, sort of a standardized playbook, not 100%, even you do 60% of it. That's going to save a lot of time and sales cycle and onboarding cycle. Yes. I believe like interviewing more than 100 companies from, SMB to large enterprises, 30% to more than 30% of your customers actually quit during that stage, during the onboarding stage. Yes, they quit. They may not review 6 months down or 3 months or a year down, but they actually mentally quit your platform. They're not going to use this platform because onboarding is not right. They're not getting the right information.
Right.
Integrating with the right.
And you've done the hard part selling them, and the onboarding, getting to use it should be the easier part.
Absolutely. All these VC and SF right now, they're more concerned about not about like how much year-on-year growth you're going to have. Like it's how much net dollar retention.
Usage and churn are the key metrics for VC.
Absolutely. So they're thinking about what are your growth metrics on like retention, on expansion? Like, tell us more. So it is more about the success this time. That's why this category is growing. I'm not building a product in that, but we are overlapping with the customer success team. A lot of account managing, customer success, and user platform to nail this onboarding, adoption, all of this. And just quite like it was pretty funny. Like at SF, I met a company that were deploying sensors onto pharmaceutical labs and scientific labs, and they were just tracking the temperature for those sensors, and they have this CRM Salesforce, and they're integrating our product to measure success for those sensors. And they have a team that actually sees it. Let's say if 2 degree cuts down on your room, you won't care, but in a lab, it's a big deal, right? So they are trying to measure success for the data that's coming out of those sensors and transmitting onto the platform, which we eventually integrate with them, and then overlapping with Salesforce and all of these qualitative measures to help them succeed with these pharmacies and all this pharmaceuticals. So it is such a big thing, and everybody's looking at that way, like measuring success and enabling customers and letting them adopt really early and delivering value fast. It's just about it. Like time to value is the biggest thing. No, but so you guys have a CRM like Salesforce, HubSpot, or is that any traditional CRM using, or you have built within your system?
We use HubSpot.
HubSpot. Okay. And I was curious, like with HubSpot, like how do you think, like you have these all product user analytics, you're tracking the success and all of this, and these are numbers, like you really know it, right? A lot of people, they cannot come up and say like, I have 87% people inquire about my product every month, every quarter, you got this. So you pretty much nailed it. So what was one thing that didn't let you like your team take action on them? Like how much of this data is available to the customer facing teams? Like I call it go-to-marketing, let's make it this way, like sales account executives, customer success or account management or whatever. And they're able to take action on this. Let's say the inquiries
because we're not a large team. We only have one customer success person. So all of our customer success people know these numbers because there's only one. I could imagine if you have layers of 20 people, most of them probably wouldn't know these numbers, and that's where you have problems. So because we're still small with one person who's totally overwhelmed, and they also have another role too, so they're like only half their time is customer success. We do what a small company in our size does. We only focus on the biggest clients to really help them. The smaller clients that might be, if we're going to lose a client, it's better lose a 300-person client than a 30,000. So it's sad to say that, but
but at the same time you can
and the smaller clients are the ones that churn faster. They're the ones who have economic problems faster, right? It's like in an ideal world we can get more larger ones than smaller ones, but right now we need all the money we can get. So
I love this guy. Elias is the ex-VP of marketing at HubSpot. In the early days, he built the infrastructure for HubSpot pretty early. And then he exited Drift for more than $1 billion. And now he's building customer success for enterprise, pretty much fishing in the same water for with us. So I was just listening to his podcast. It's more of an enterprise problem now. People see it on the SMB. You can playbook, you can automate, but eventually from a commercial standpoint, as a founder, as a G team leader or the company or a co-founder, you won't think too much about SMB. Once it gets slightly bigger, then you start caring about. So it's all about like helping for your team, like with one team member, you can think about like how you can help that one person prioritize the high value tasks, high value mission critical tasks around the enterprise account. Any tool, any data, any layer you can build on top of HubSpot, and a lot of these companies building on top of HubSpot these days for less money. I know they're pretty expensive when you go, multi-product with them. But again, we'll talk about it later on this. So now go-to-market size. I know the size is pretty big. You already know that addressable market around the training and investments and the Fortune 500s and then I would say smaller enterprises too. How do you think of like penetrating? What makes you excited this coming year? I know, unless you're not a founder like yourself, you're a founder, like you're thinking about, hey, Thanksgiving, I'll just think more about in the second week of January, I'll be back from vacation and we'll just start new, have new investments. Now, what is that you're thinking, like what makes you excited towards the go-to-market? What is the first industry that you're thinking you need to penetrate more?
So two things. I've been doing founder-led sales. And given how amazing our product is and where our sales are, I'm realizing that that gap means that I suck at sales. There are some founders who are great at sales. That's not me. So we've been interviewing several people over the last few months, and we have found someone who's at least conceptually accepted to start in January to be our salesperson. They come with 20 years of HR technology sales experience, which is very important in this space. Not just because they have a Rolodex, but they know conceptually how to sell to this buyer. HR buyers are the hardest buyers of any function to sell to. Harder than CFOs, harder than supply chain, harder than marketing, harder than salespeople. So very excited about this new salesperson. And then we will have money starting in February from a couple of partnership deals we've done where I can now start to spend and starting a very light lead gen funnel to get this salesperson, and he'll be our SDR and salesperson, but to get him leads to qualify himself, unfortunately for him at the beginning, to then try to close. And I think that'll be the beginning of kind of a hockey stick, because when you have a great salesperson who knows how to close a deal and get them through the funnel, and money to get more leads and more meetings, and you know your product is already product market fit and amazing, that's a recipe for really scaling. So I'm really excited to scale the business next year, make more money, have more money, be profitable. So yeah, that's it's been 10 years to get to this point, and we're right at we're about to walk through that door.
Absolutely. And I love the way that you're thinking through, like making sure that you've done the product right. And that's people take like as many years to do the product right. So
a lot longer than I thought, man. And with a lot more pivots. I read an article that usually all the unicorns actually take 10 years on average before they hit hockey stick. So its average is to be miserable for 10 years before you hit what everybody sees is like, oh, you're so lucky, it's so fun, right? Like, well, no, it's 10 years of misery. And then I saw another report that showed that when you do finally hit it, the product or service that you're going to market with that actually does take off is only between 10 and 15% similar to the idea you first had. Meaning,
absolutely,
whatever you think you're going to launch as a startup, you better just go in to say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't know what I'll be selling in 10 years, because
absolutely, that should be the mindset.
Think that you'll succeed with your idea, you're wrong, and you will fail, because you have to really give up on your idea. And the faster you do to find the right idea to sell, the quicker you'll be successful. But it's really hard for founders to do that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these founders that I get to speak with a lot as well. I myself am a founder. There's so much of, like, especially these technical co-founders. I have a technical co-founder. He's more emotionally attached to the product. Like whenever I talk about, hey,
it's their baby.
So whenever we we have so many fights, like brothers, like we have friends and brothers too, and then co-founders for the last 5 years. We're doing every single day together. So whenever I call, I say, hey, we need to pivot this. Like we're talking about customer success. There are some adjacent use cases. We can do this. We can do this. There's a huge market. And you can see people getting funds, a lot of VCs are showing interest in this and all. And he's like, hey, I want to really do this. And I said, like, you have to see from the commercial side of things too. You got to make sure that, from background, I'm a sales guy. So I think of like how to better sell it, how I can grab as many USPs as possible with whatever we're building, because that's what that matters. If you're like 10, 15, 20 years down and you're still thinking, hey, there's something that I need to build and I need to wait for it and then sell it. You gotta know from day one as a sales guy like yourself that you are going to hang around these folks. These are your ICPs, whatever you're going to build. So I know on the product level, you always pivot, but on a high level vision, let's say you never thought about like building outside of HR tech.
Correct. For me, it always has been recruiting and connection and just figuring out a way to get these psychometrics used, kind of like Grammarly figured out how to use the thesaurus and dictionary, and they're worth $8 billion. Everyone had a dictionary thesaurus on their desk. Nobody ever used it, right? Or even in their digital versions. Everyone has used a psychometric tool at some point, but nobody ever uses it. So we're like, how do we Grammarly and ChatGPT this whole category? And we kind of put that category into a ChatGPT version of Grammarly, and boom. So it was a lot of copying of what's out there and applying it to this space.
Yeah. So when I saw the growth of Grammarly, because I used it, the business plan, for about 4 years, until I stopped, because I now have Notion, the many other tools that came after ChatGPT 3.5. So now at that point, I was listening to the CEO, she's a female, right? The Grammarly CEO. And she was more about like we work where you work, like integration and everything. So how did you see that? I know that you guys have
Yeah,
integration.
so we're
You
we're
integrated.
we're in email. So you write an email in Outlook or Google, you push our
Hmm.
button in the email, it rewrites the email right there in your
Yes.
email. You don't have to go anywhere.
Yes.
You could even
Yeah.
ask Aura in the email. You write your email and you can ask Aura, what's wrong with this email for writing to a deal? Or how can you like, or what are the two things I need to know about a deal before I write this email? So you can just ask and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a Zoom
Hmm.
meeting or a video
Hmm.
conference for Microsoft Teams, 7 people, you're presenting some project you want approval. And in Zoom, you just click on our button. It's in Zoom next to share, react, chat. There's a HT button,
Yes. Yes.
and it'll
Yes.
it'll
Yes.
pop up. You can't right now because you haven't turned it on, but it'll pop up the dynamics of the meeting. It'll pop up
Yes.
and say, "Hey, a deal. Everyone's decisive, and you're the only deliberate person." Or you can even ask the
Mm-hmm.
coach, "Who's going to butt heads with me today?" And confidentially, is going to tell you, "Oh, Steve is going to butt heads with you because you're so different. Here's how you're different." Or how
Hmm.
do I overcome
Hmm.
objection from this person? So in workflow, in the meeting, you're getting all these coaching tips as if you had like God in your ear whispering to you.
Mm, yeah, I love it. And also, just imagine like sales call. I know that there's so much of sales intelligence and all. So how do you think like seeing it as a conversational intelligence kind of a platform that helps people with training while they're at their while they're engaging, while they're at calls. So have you also think about like these adjacent teams that are working, or you just
Well, so for sales, so because our tool, our platform, you need to take a personality test, a 10-minute test. Right now, it's
hmm
only for internal use. So it
hmm
would help train a salesperson on how better to do things the way they like to learn. So if I were
hmm
giving you advice and you're conceptual in the way you learn, the AI would give you conceptual advice. If somebody else needs
hmm
detailed examples, it would give them detailed examples of how to change their sales
hmm
presentation. So that's how it could help. Now, one day I do see it helping salespeople in selling to external clients and prospects because one
hmm
day, everyone in the world has a resume,
hmm
basically.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's only your skills, your hard skills. On the back,
Experience skills, yeah.
on the
Yeah.
back, one day will be everyone's soft skills. Everyone will have an assessment taken. I hope to be the
Yeah.
company that delivers 8 billion assessments, where now the hard skills and the soft skills are all in one document, in one person's digital wallet. Okay. When that happens, that'll open up the possibility of using these assessments and this insight around the coach for people outside of your company. So you go to the
Mm,
hospital, you check in, and they match you with a doctor that's aligned with how you communicate. If you have a detail-oriented patient, you probably want a detail-oriented doctor. Detail-oriented people, when they get the doctor who are only conceptual, not detailed, are always leaving frustrated. And when the conceptual person
mm,
who's a patient doesn't want the detail, they can't. So imagine matching Uber drivers, imagine matching Match.com, dating apps, finding love. If we could all understand each other instantly, it would solve so much conflict in this world for how we find love, a doctor, an Uber driver, a dentist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, pitching a client, doing the presentation
mm,
the best. Here, redo my presentation for this person. One button push,
mhm,
it redoes the presentation based on how that person likes it. So that is
mm,
coming down the road. I don't know how far down the road, but that is coming down the road. And I'm
mm,
I'm
but
running up against time. How much more time do you need?
yeah, I think not more than 3 minutes,
Okay.
3 to 4 minutes. Yeah. So just last question before I said, if you're like, I know that you're big about culture and you're so into it and you kind of lived it for long enough to build a platform that can help teams have people on board, people culture fit, and this has been the biggest problem we already discussed. So, what is it kind of for people so that you're getting along inside your team? Like, what kind of culture that you're kind of instilling and your team at, no, you not as big to talk so much and put it on the wall, but I'm sure the kind of person that you are, which I
Yeah.
understood in the past 40 minutes, you're really about people and understanding those people. So any advice that you have for founders, smaller teams? I know that they don't talk about culture. They say, okay, hey, you come here to work. This is a place of problems. We're a startup. You got to wear different hats. We'll give you the freedom. We'll give you the opportunity, and that's all you're gonna learn. So that ship has
I,
sailed now. It was good enough when it started back in the valley 10 years back, and not anymore. People now, these as young people, they're now thinking about people that can motivate, that they can look up to, that they understand better, that they understand them better. So getting back to any advice would be
yeah. So I think most companies under 10 employees probably have very similar cultures. They're probably product-oriented cultures where creativity and innovation are driving it. They're probably less process and structure. The more process and structure early on, the less you'll have productivity and innovation. So I think most companies, it's a bunch of bunk that say, oh, we define the strong culture and exactly what we wanted from the beginning. Bullshit. Like, you're a maverick thinker, innovative company, quick to, you got to be fast to market, agile, and change and pivot quick. I mean, that's like every startup under 10 people. And then you get one or two clients. And then you find out that you could lose them if you don't have process and customer success. And you need other things than just churning out new products. You need support and clunky guides and, you know, videos of how to do everything. And all of a sudden you're getting slowed down because clients can slow you down. And then you have 100 clients, and that can really slow you down, because if you make one mistake in some product innovation, you have 100 clients, 10,000 people complaining, and now you just ruined your company. So now you need quality assurance and QA and testing, and you can't just release, and you got to make sure it's perfect and not just good enough. And so there's a culture of going from like fast, agile, quick with mistakes, and that's okay. C and fast is better than A and slow and startup. 100 clients, $10 million, it's better to go C slow than A fast. I mean, or A quality slow and C fast. And so I think all cultures transform over time depending on the scale of the company. And what the problem though is most CEOs want to keep that same culture from the first 10 employees. But that's not the culture that's going to get them to 10 million, to 100 million, to $1 billion. Every one of those phases, there's like cliffs. There's a cliff at 0 to 1 million. There's a cliff from 1 million or 2 million to 10. There's a cliff from 10 to 100, and there's a cliff from 100 to $1 billion. Why are those cliffs there? That you, like, it's like roadkill. You see thousands of companies failing at those cliffs. It's because that's the cliff where the culture needs to change, regardless of what you do, what industry you're in. And most CEOs try to carry back what made them work to the present, to the future. And they've got to look at it a different way. Is I got to reinvent my culture based on the structure, scale, size of where we are. And that's the best advice I can give to founders and CEOs is when you hit $1 million, you better be thinking consciously and intentionally how your culture should be changing. So you're hiring different people on purpose that maybe in the interview process, 9 of the 10 people currently at your company won't like the next 3 hires. But those next 3 hires are what you need. You keep hiring the same culture of those 10 and you'll never get to 10 million or 1 million, et cetera. So that's the biggest problem, that people hold on to a culture instead of looking to proactively hire for a different culture depending on the size of the company.
And not being able to evolve over
And not
time.
to be right. When I say size, I mean the challenge that they're about to enter. Because the challenge of a zero revenue, pre-revenue startup, and the challenge of $1 million revenue with a few clients going to a 10 million, and the challenge going from 10 million to 100 million are completely different challenges that necessitate completely different cultures and people.
Absolutely. Can't agree more. And of course, being in the first stage, I know that because at the end of the day, it's all about people make companies, right? People make culture. So when you have like more of those people, you have more things
Of
that
the
you need
same.
to service, and you need to make sure that you need to make sure that you evolve your culture with them as you grow. So it was really, really nice, meeting you and getting to know you more, John. It was quite a pleasure, and maybe let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.